totally fine. Feel free to take your time and finish up while I'm talking. But I appreciate all of you guys coming back right on time so we can start right at 1 o'clock. You guys did that very well, so thank you very much for doing that. So we are going to go ahead and get started, and we're going to be looking at session 16 for the rest of the afternoon. And we're going to be looking at kind of an overview. We're going to take a few steps back, look at the steps of creating a behavior support plan. So like we always do, we want to thank all of our funders on the state level as well as on the local level. We always want to thank the Senior Center, Early Child Adoptions. Anyone else want to thank anyone else? Their parents? Me? Thanks, the founder. So this is the agenda, and again, you guys have this in your PowerPoints on your zip drives. Everyone's still able to access those. Everyone's looking at it? So like it says up here, we're going to do a couple different things. We're doing a couple different activities, get you moving a little bit, which will be good. A few of the learning objectives for this session. To start, we're going to look at everyone's different levels of skills and different level of experiences when it comes to developing behavior support plans. You guys are going to get a roadmap, so to speak, to document the journey prior to developing a behavior support plan. We're also going to look at each of the individual steps of creating and then implementing a behavior support plan. We're going to look more closely at the beginning first steps, and then in sessions 17 and 18, we're going to move on to the later steps. And then we're also going to practice a little bit, and we're going to work as your teams on your vignettes, and we're going to work on some goal setting. So a few logistics. We still have our ground rules up over there. If anyone has any they'd like to add, you're more than welcome to. I also wanted to make sure to address the parking lot before we got started. Thank you to whoever wrote that up there. I love it when people use the parking lot. But the question about the parking lot asks, the parent sessions that recently happened at Lake Dillon Preschool, Positive Solutions they're called, what was taught at those sessions? And I actually think that's a really, really great question, because now we're talking so much. We're going to talk a lot today, this afternoon, about teaming with families and how important it is to partner with families and how they can be a vital piece to a behavior support plan. I've only ever taught one Positive Solutions class before, so I'd love to hear from Catherine Orr, if that's all right, about kind of what those recently talked about.
So I'm sure a Lake Dillon teacher asked that. It's a really good question, because just to remind you guys what we're talking about here. There is a partner training component to all the pyramid sessions that is written specifically for parents. And it's named Positive Solutions for Parents. And it's a series of 6 training sessions. They actually call them modules that basically, in a nutshell, summarize some of the most, what we're determined to be some of the most applicable strategies and concepts from all the pyramid training 18 sessions that are most applicable to families to know about and to maybe even implement in their homes to help be a complementary kind of type of strategy or plan for children who are in a classroom where a teacher is also implementing some of the pyramid strategies in the classroom. Does that make sense? So basically, I just taught Positive Solutions for parents at Lake Dillon Preschool, specifically for Lake Dillon parents. And first I'm going to say, any of you can pull up on that CEPHL website, and I'd be happy to show you exactly how to find it later or at a break. Those parent training modules, it actually says, I just looked at it so that I could find out. It's called Pre-K Parent Modules. That's what it says along the left side of the CEPHL website. You click there, and the Positive Solutions curriculum comes up. You can click through all of the PowerPoint slides, and you can see exactly what was taught at your center, Lake Dillon Preschool, or if you're interested in having it taught at your center for some of the rest of you, you can look through it and see what it's all about. Basically, it's a lot of the hard, concrete strategies that you guys are learning about, and it's less research information, and it's Tucker the Turtle. It's teaching about emotional literacy, how to talk about feelings and teach your kids about feelings. It's how to teach social skills. It introduces the Super Friend book and those 4 discrete social skills that are research-based that we want children to know, like giving a compliment and tapping and asking a friend to play and joining play of others. It's how to teach those skills. There's a lot of information in it about how to self-regulation and deal with tantrums at home. There's a lot of information in it, maybe even more in depth than the pyramid stuff, about rule setting and what kind of rules are appropriate to have at home and how to teach your kids about rules and implement like consistent rules in your home and what's appropriate for different age ranges. It does introduce Tucker the Turtle and problem solving. The problem solving kit, pretty much everything I just covered in session 15 is in Positive Solutions for parents. And just like I do with you guys, I show parents the Cephal website and show them where they can print off some of this stuff themselves, like to make a solution kit or to make a Tucker the Turtle book if they want to have one at home and stuff like that. And it's a lot less, it's less information about children with special needs, and it's less information about statistics, about research, and it's more of just introducing all those concrete tools and strategies. Oh, I'm gonna say one more thing. There's a whole session about discovering the meaning behind behavior. So how to figure out why your children do what they do, what's the function of their behavior, what are they getting out of it, and why do they continue to engage in it. And it's very written in very layman's terms about how to help parents kind of be detectives to figure out why their kids are doing what they do, and that's one of the first steps to them figuring out how to handle or respond to their behavior. I think I just hit on all the most critical points that are in Positive Solutions. So anybody who wants to ask me more about it or look specifically at it, I can show you how to find it on the internet.
And we've gotten really good feedback in the past from parents, so I mean, if that's something that you want to see at your center, feel free to talk to Catherine or I, we can talk about that, put that together a little bit.
I can't necessarily teach it at your center, but I can
No, I'm
problem
just saying,
solve with you about how you can get it offered at your center.
Yes, how we can get that together, because it really is, we do get really good feedback from parents.
Yeah.
So then a few other logistic things. Did everyone grab an evaluation? I moved them. Oh, they're right here. Does everyone have an evaluation? Anybody need one? Oh, you want to hand them out?
Did you grab one?
Yeah.
You're welcome. Thank you, Danny. Welcome. And then the only other thing I wanted to mention, logistics-wise, is that stuff going to do? Is that we are going to be doing 2 activities today that involve our vignette child. So if you guys wanted to move around, I was going to kind of leave it up to you. Since we weren't going to use them this morning, I wasn't going to tell you where you had to sit. So if you're okay with it, when we do those activities, we'll just kind of break up around the room, whether, I know we've had groups in the past that have sat on the floor, or if you want to go sit outside, or you want to break up at different tables, we'll just go ahead and do that. But just keep that in the back of your mind that you'll have to move around just a little bit. So unless anybody has any other questions, I'm going to go ahead and get started with session 16. Like I said, we're going to kind of do an overview of creating a behavior support plan. What I do want to talk about really briefly is what we talked about a lot at the beginning of all of our sessions. Sessions 15, 16, 17, and 18 are really focusing on the top of the pyramid, that intensive intervention, those strategies when it comes to children that are really, their challenging behavior is very persistent. But the one thing I want to touch on really quickly is that I can, I've been in your seat before, and I can remember thinking, wow, this is a lot. This is a lot of work. It would be really hard. I can't just turn around and go implement this tomorrow. It's a lot of work. You might feel a little bit overwhelmed. Well, I just kind of want to remind everybody that, this pyramid, this diagram right here, the steps that you take before you get to this intensive intervention place, it's all evidence-based. And that research has told us that if the steps below that top pyramid, if those are, implemented and being addressed, then you will have a smaller number of children, a smaller percentage of children in your classroom who will be needing that intensive intervention, those approaches and strategies. So if you find that you have you feel like half of your class needs those intensive intervention strategies, maybe it's time to revisit the lower steps of the pyramid. Because without those being addressed, you're going to see problems at the higher level. Does everyone get what I'm saying there? So, like I said, we're going to talk about these intensive individualized interventions. And that can be a mouthful, at least to stand up here and talk about it, definitely is a mouthful. But these interventions are a key component to these behavior support plans. And there are 3 criteria that goes along with these interventions. So by definition, these are used with children who have persistent, challenging behavior, and this is the big piece, who do not respond to typical preventative practices, child's guidance procedures, or social emotional teaching strategies that would normally work with most children. And I know normally work and with most children makes it a little bit vague, but moral of the story is that these individualized interventions that will be implemented through a behavior support plan are for children who are not responding to typical preventative practices. Does that kind of make sense? Okay. So what we're going to do really quick is we're going to define challenging behavior. So we've talked about it in the past. When we talked about, and I forget what session it is, Catherine, if you remember, feel free to jump in, but we've talked about hot buttons in the past and how every different person has different hot buttons. I know what might bother me might be very different for Jen. And I know in the past we've identified what each of our own individual hot buttons were. Does everyone remember doing that? It's important to remember that these hot buttons can be described as challenging behavior from that child because it's most likely affecting your behavior. It's making your behavior different than it normally would. So it may not be a challenging behavior to another teacher, but it's important to remember that the behavior that child is exhibiting is affecting your behavior. So what I want to do really, really quick is I love these are giant sticky notes, and I think they're really funny. So what I would love to do is, I'm going to give everyone one, and you all have markers on your table. And I think we should take a minute to identify a different hot button of our own. And if you'd like, you can take this one step further, and you can identify what you think might be a hot button of your co-teacher, or maybe an administrator. Because I think it's really important to remember that, you know, the whole environment can affect you. And it's important to remember you may have more than one hot button. You may have 5, you may have 15 hot buttons. Might be a really long day, thank you. Might be a really long day if you have 15 hot buttons. But so let's go ahead and try to identify a different hot button. Yeah, I got one, but I took one and then she took the rest, so. Yes, and if you can't think another one, that's okay. But then what I'd like to do afterwards is I'd like to go around and we're gonna share them all. Because then you might think, oh, Jess has that hot button. Oh, that would come on mine too. I need to keep that in mind when I'm in my classroom because that hot button I didn't identify might be affecting my behavior. And we have lots of markers and stuff, so feel free to draw pictures. Like I said, we're going to share.
Be creative.
Be creative, for sure. Yeah, I'm working on the mess. That's exactly what I'm doing.
Like, I don't think Charter has any issue special order for Staples.
Staples,
Our
yeah.
office order is Staples. They do have one? Okay, Carly says Target does have one. All right, and Carly knows.
Oh, hey, Catherine, shut that off. Or could you shut that off? Demand.